Found the divorce papers in my husband's golf bag after he returned from a business retreat. I played dumb until I overheard him say, "She's too weak to walk away." 2 months later, he was publicly humiliated at our son's graduation. When you've been married as long as I had been, little things stop meaning much. You see your husband's car in the driveway, his coat on the rack, and it doesn't spark anything, no anger, no joy. Just habit. Life becomes a series of routines you never meant to agree to. That was where I was with Carson. We had been married 24 years. We met in Santa Cruz, got married in Los Gatos, and settled into the kind of suburban life that other people envied from the outside. Big white house, 2 kids, 2 dogs, backyard with a hot tub and string lights. We were the couple who hosted block parties, sent out holiday cards with matching sweaters, and went apple picking every October just for the Instagram. Our son Braden had just finished his final semester at UC Berkeley, and Melia, our daughter, was finishing up senior year of high school. Both bright, kind, good kids. They were the only real thing in that house after a while. Everything else, especially the man I married, felt like something fading into the wallpaper. So when Carson told me he was going on a 3-day business retreat in Scottsdale with clients from San Diego, I didn't blink. I just nodded, packed him a bag, and said, "Don't forget your allergy meds." That was my role. Wife. Planner. Peacemaker. The one who reminded him to take care of himself even when he forgot to care about me. He left on a Thursday. Came back Sunday night. Same as always. Except this time, while unpacking his stuff in the garage, I always did his laundry there so I could check for gum wrappers, receipts, business cards, all the normal things. Something slid out of the pocket of his golf bag. Manila folder. Crisp. Clean. I opened it without thinking. Divorce papers. My name, his name. All typed up. His signature already there, right at the bottom, above the line marked petitioner. I sat down on the laundry bench like the air had been punched out of my lungs. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even panic. That was the strangest part. After a moment, I just folded the papers back up, slid them into the same pocket, zipped the bag shut, and finished folding socks like nothing happened. At dinner, I asked him about the retreat. He said it went well. He talked about golf, drinks at the resort, some new potential client from Arizona. I nodded, asked if he wanted wine with dinner. He said, "Sure." I poured 2 glasses and toasted to nothing in particular. I became a ghost in my own life after that. I smiled when I needed to. I answered questions. I cooked meals. But something in me had gone cold. Not dead, just quiet. I started waking up an hour earlier, just to sit on the porch and think. Started taking longer walks with the dogs. Pretended to be asleep when Carson came to bed. The distance between us, once invisible, became a chasm. I didn't know why he hadn't served me yet. I figured maybe he was waiting until after Braden's graduation to avoid drama. Maybe he was just too cowardly. Or maybe he was hoping I'd confront him so he could play victim. I didn't give him the satisfaction. But a few weeks later, I got my answer. It was late. I was in the hallway outside his home office, holding a basket of laundry again, ironic, right, when I heard his voice through the door. He was on the phone. He had the door cracked open just enough for me to hear every word. He said, "No, she doesn't suspect anything. She's too weak to walk away. She never finishes anything." I froze. Then he laughed. Like it was a joke. Like I was a joke. I didn't even finish the laundry that night. I just went to bed. But something in me clicked. The kind of click you feel right before a match gets lit. He thought I was weak. All these years, he saw me managing our home, raising our kids, sacrificing my career, holding together birthdays and funerals and in-laws and vacations, and he translated that into weakness. Because I didn't scream? Because I didn't storm out? Fine. Let him think that. The next day, I started making quiet moves. I scheduled an appointment with a divorce attorney in Mountain View, told Carson I had a dentist appointment. I opened a separate bank account at a local credit union. Transferred small, unnoticeable amounts over the weeks. I started going through our financial documents, snapping pictures with my phone. Every paycheck stub. Every savings account. Every hidden stash he thought I didn't know about. And I got a PI. Her name was Kelly. She looked like she stepped out of a country western movie but talked like a Wall Street executive. Within 2 weeks, she had the proof. Her name was Marielle. She was in HR at some biotech firm he consulted for in San Diego. They'd been seeing each other for a year and a half. Same hotels. Same weekends. Same lies. At that point, it wasn't even heartbreak anymore. It was strategy. Calculation. Timing. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to wait. And then destroy him. Braden's graduation was coming up. UC Berkeley was throwing this beautiful outdoor ceremony up at the Greek Theater. We planned a big dinner afterward at a rooftop restaurant in downtown Oakland. I told Carson I wanted to go all out, photographers, cake, champagne, family from out of town. He agreed. Thought I was being sentimental. He had no idea. I spent the 2 weeks before the event finalizing everything with my attorney. I made copies of the PI report, the financial documents, the photos, everything. I put it all in a single envelope and packed it into my purse. And I waited for the moment. The day of Braden's graduation was warm and golden, the kind of spring afternoon Northern California does so well. Families were scattered across the rows of the Greek Theater in their sun hats and Ray-Bans, clutching water bottles and flowers. Melia sat next to me, legs crossed at the ankle, freshly done braids and soft pink lipstick that made her look older than she was. Carson was on my other side, sunglasses on, clapping like the proud father he was pretending to be. I kept glancing over at him. He had this smug serenity to him, like everything in his life was under control. Like the graduation, the celebration dinner, the future, mine, his, ours, was just another thing he was managing. There were moments I caught him checking his phone, quickly turning the screen away. I didn't say a word. Not even when I saw Marielle's name pop up in a preview. She texted him safe travels back with a red heart. Safe travels, indeed. Braden's name was called, and I stood, heart swelling, clapping louder than I ever had for anything. My baby boy, all 6'2" of him, walked across that stage and raised his arms in the air like a champion. It took everything in me not to cry. Not because of Carson. But because my son had made it. Despite everything. And I was about to blow his whole family apart. After the ceremony, we took pictures on the lawn, arms around each other, forced smiles from me and Carson, real ones from the kids. I could see the resemblance between the kids and him so clearly in those photos. Same eyes. Same chin. But none of the selfishness. Thank God. We drove into Oakland for the dinner. It was a beautiful rooftop restaurant with string lights and panoramic views of the Bay Bridge. I had arranged everything. Private section, custom cake with Braden's name, personalized menu cards. Carson was in his element, laughing with relatives, giving toasts, playing the doting father. You'd never guess that man was planning to blindside his wife with divorce papers. I watched him pour wine for our guests, joke with Melia about her college applications, nod along with Braden's professors. Like nothing was broken. Like I didn't know. I excused myself halfway through the appetizers and went to the restroom. Looked at myself in the mirror. I wasn't shaking. My reflection stared back calm, composed. I took the envelope from my purse, double-checked the contents, and walked back out into the soft hum of dinner conversations and clinking glasses. Then I stood. I tapped my spoon gently on my glass, smiling like I was just another proud mom wanting to say a few words. People quieted, turning their chairs toward me. Carson leaned back in his seat, smiling like he was proud of me, too. "This has been an amazing day," I began. My voice was steady. Warm. "And Brayden, I couldn't be prouder. You've become the kind of man this world needs more of, strong, kind, principled." Brayden smiled and mouthed, "Love you, Mom." I turned to him fully. "You're the best thing I've ever done. You and your sister." Then I turned slightly, and this time I looked Carson straight in the face. "And I think it's time you both knew something else. Something I've been keeping to myself for a little while." Carson's smile faltered just a bit. His hand, resting on his glass, paused mid-lift. I held up the envelope. "2 months ago, I found these," I said, tapping it gently. "They're divorce papers. Signed by Carson. Hidden in his golf bag after a weekend in Scottsdale." A stunned silence fell over the table. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. Just calmly delivering the facts, one by one, like reading a shopping list. Since then, I've learned a lot. About Marielle. About how long it's been going on. About the lies. The plans he made behind my back. Even what he thinks of me. He said I'm too weak to walk away. I gave a small smile. But I think I've proven otherwise. You could have heard a pin drop. Brayden looked like someone had slapped him. Melia's eyes darted from me to her father, her mouth open in horror. Carson looked around the table, scanning for an ally. He found none. And still, I didn't raise my voice. "I didn't say anything before today," I continued, "because I wanted this to be Brayden's day. I still do. But I also think the truth deserves its moment. So, Carson, I just wanted to say, congratulations." I handed him the envelope and sat back down, picked up my fork, and began to cut into my chicken like it was just another meal. No one moved for a few seconds. Then Brayden pushed back from the table, excused himself, and walked toward the edge of the rooftop. Melia followed a moment later. A few of our friends just sat frozen. My sister's mouth was hanging open like she couldn't believe it had really happened. Carson was left holding the envelope, his hand trembling ever so slightly. His mouth opened and closed a few times, but no words came out. He stood abruptly, knocking over his wine glass. Red soaked into the tablecloth. He muttered something to no one in particular and walked off toward the elevators. Everyone watched him go, but no one said a word. I took a bite of my chicken. Chewed. Swallowed. Sipped water. It was the first meal I'd had in months that didn't sit like a rock in my stomach. No one at that table dared to say anything for a long moment after Carson disappeared into the elevator. The clink of silverware stopped. The soft jazz from the speakers overhead suddenly felt too loud. My sister, Leah, who had flown in from Bellingham, reached over and gently squeezed my hand. "You okay?" she whispered. I nodded once. Still calm. Still steady. Honestly? I felt more present in my body than I had in years. I could feel the stitching of the linen napkin in my lap. The cool condensation on my water glass. The muscles in my jaw unclench for what felt like the first time in a decade. "I'm fine," I said. Better than fine. People started moving again. Quiet murmurs passed between cousins and aunts. My friend Celeste, who had been married to a serial cheater herself, raised her wine glass in my direction with a nod of approval. Brayden hadn't come back to the table yet. Neither had Melia. But I didn't go after them. They needed space. Time to process. I'd just taken a hammer to the foundation of their childhood home, and no matter how justified, it wasn't going to feel good in the moment. I sat through the rest of dinner, letting conversations shift back toward graduation and summer plans. No one dared bring up Carson again. I was both relieved and slightly amused by how quickly people adapt when a secret becomes truth. All those years of pretending, of smiling through resentment, and all it took was 10 sentences and an envelope to rip the mask off. When dessert came, a chocolate mousse cake with "Congrats Brayden," piped in gold frosting, he finally returned. Not Carson. Braden. He walked slowly back to the table, eyes red, but his jaw set. He pulled out his chair and sat down across from me, staring at the cake. Everyone was watching him, but he didn't seem to notice. "Did you stay quiet, for me?" he asked, not looking up. I hesitated, then answered honestly. "Yes. And for your sister. I didn't want either of you to carry the burden before you had to." He finally looked up. "So when did you know?" I paused again. "I found the papers 2 months ago. The rest, a few weeks after that." He nodded slowly, absorbing it. "He really thought you wouldn't do anything?" he asked, his voice soft but bitter. "That you'd just let it happen?" I gave a tired little laugh. "That's the kind of man he's become. Or maybe always was." Braden was quiet for a beat. Then he picked up his fork and started eating his cake. That was all I needed from him. Not forgiveness. Not a speech. Just a quiet kind of understanding. Melia joined us a few minutes later, her eyes glassy but dry. She didn't speak, just curled up next to me on the banquet seat and laid her head on my shoulder like she used to when she was a little girl. Her silence said enough. Later that night, back at home, the silence in the house was different. Not heavy. Not hostile. Just quiet. The kids had gone to their rooms. Leah was staying the night and had made herself a cup of tea in the kitchen. I sat on the back patio under the string lights Carson once insisted on buying, the ones he said made the yard look like a Pottery Barn catalog. I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, sipping a glass of wine, and listened to the sounds of the neighborhood settling for the night. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. A car door shut. A sprinkler clicked on. And then my phone buzzed. "Carson. First a text, 'You didn't have to do that. That was cruel.' Then another, 'We could have handled this privately. For the kids' sake.' Then a third, 'You've made a huge mistake.' I stared at the screen for a while. Then I turned the phone face down and set it on the table beside me. That man had lied to my face, insulted my intelligence behind closed doors, and planned to discard me like an outdated appliance, quietly, efficiently, with no mess. He wanted control. Predictability. A smooth exit with no waves. What he got was exposure. A lesson. I didn't respond. The next few days were a blur. Texts poured in from friends and family, some supportive, some nosy, and a few from mutual acquaintances who clearly didn't know which side to take. Carson didn't come home. I'd packed a weekend bag for myself in advance, just in case I needed air, but I ended up not leaving. This was my house. I wasn't the one who'd done anything wrong. He, on the other hand, moved into a corporate apartment near Palo Alto, closer to the office. I knew that because his secretary, who always liked me more than she liked him, quietly slipped me the address through a misdirected email about a furniture delivery. She didn't say anything else, she didn't have to. Braden returned to his college apartment for the summer, working a paid internship in the city. We talked every few days, and he was distant, but not cold. Processing. Melia was a bit frostier. She stopped asking questions about her dad and started asking deeper ones about marriage, trust, and why people change. Those conversations broke me in ways I didn't expect, but I kept having them. Honest. Raw. Unfiltered. The kind I wish someone had with me when I was her age. Carson tried to play the narrative game after that. He told mutual friends I was vindictive, that I'd blew up our family over a rough patch. He told some that he hadn't even served the papers yet, that maybe it was just preparation, not intention. That we were working through things privately until I made it public. But people talk. And more importantly, people listen. Especially to receipts. And I had plenty. The PI's photos. The emails. The late-night texts. The itinerary overlaps between his client meetings and her PTO schedule. I didn't even have to show most of it. just hinted. And the truth began to spread like wildfire through our social circles. He went from being upstanding Carson to, oh, that Carson, in a matter of weeks. Funny how fast a man's reputation unravels when the wife he underestimated finds her voice. And I wasn't done speaking. It was strange, at first, watching him unravel from a distance. I didn't feel joy. It wasn't revenge for revenge's sake. I felt relief. Like I had been carrying a boulder on my chest for so many years that I'd just learned to breathe shallowly. And now? Now I was finally taking full breaths again. People started pulling away from him in subtle but unmistakable ways. Our old couple friends stopped inviting him to dinners. A few of them reached out to me privately, saying they had no idea, even though I wasn't sure I believed them. You'd have to be blind or in full denial not to see how distant we had become over the last few years. One of the first real cracks in his world came about 3 weeks after the graduation dinner. I got a call from Celeste, a mutual friend of ours, who worked in a real estate firm that handled high-end properties in the Bay Area. Hey, she said cautiously, this is probably none of my business, but, did you know Carson's trying to list the Santa Cruz Beach condo? I blinked, standing in my kitchen with a spatula in one hand and pancake batter on the stove. No, I said slowly, I didn't. Well, he is. He told the agent you'd agreed to sell and split the equity. Papers haven't been signed yet, so the listing's not live, but, yeah. I figured maybe you should know. He was trying to liquidate shared assets before the divorce proceedings even started. Classic. I thanked her, hung up, and immediately called my attorney. Within 48 hours, we had a legal motion in place to freeze all jointly held properties. That condo had been in our family for 15 years. We'd taken the kids there every summer. I wasn't about to let him cash it in to fund his shiny new life with the human resource disaster he met during one of his retreats. What Carson never understood, what so many men like him don't understand, is that women like me don't burn easily. We bend. We compromise. We prioritize everyone else for so long, we forget we had bones beneath the burden. But the moment we stop bending, we don't snap. We rise. And by the time they notice, it's already too late. He showed up at the house once, unannounced, about 5 weeks after the graduation. It was early evening. I had just finished cleaning up from dinner, and Melia was upstairs watching a show. I opened the front door and there he was, holding a small brown paper bag and wearing the same puffer vest I used to tease him about. "Can we talk?" he asked. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. 5 minutes, I said. He handed me the bag. Inside were a few old photos, a necklace I thought I'd lost years ago, and a letter, unopened, unmarked. "What is this?" I asked flatly. He shifted on his feet. "I've been thinking. About everything. About us." I raised an eyebrow. "Now?" "I messed up," he said, voice low. I was scared. I thought we were just going through the motions. I didn't know how to fix it. Marielle wasn't supposed to be anything serious. I exhaled slowly, letting the weight of that sentence settle between us. "You wanted to leave me," I said. Without a word. "You signed divorce papers behind my back, planned a quiet exit. And you thought I'd just, what? Nod? Say thank you for your honesty?" His mouth opened, but I held up a hand. "I don't want an apology, Carson. I want you to stop acting like you're the victim in a story you wrote." He looked away, embarrassed. Maybe ashamed. It was hard to tell. I'd stopped trying to decipher his expressions. "I miss our family," he said. "I miss what we had." That was the first time I almost lost my composure. Because there was something bitterly sad about hearing a man reminisce about something he himself destroyed, like a kid crying over a toy he smashed. "We don't exist like that anymore," I said quietly. "And that's on you." I turned to go, then paused. "Braden doesn't return your calls. Melia hasn't asked where you've been in over a month." You might want to think about why. Then I closed the door behind me. Later that night, I opened the letter. It was long. Handwritten. Full of Carson's trademark over-explanations. He talked about feeling trapped, irrelevant, like a ghost in his own life. Said he thought I stopped loving him. That he felt more alive with Marielle. That it wasn't about mating, it was about being seen. What a joke. I read the entire thing, folded it up, and tucked it into a drawer I rarely used. Not because I wanted to keep it. But because I wanted to remember. Not the pain, but the clarity. That this wasn't sudden. That it wasn't some one-time mistake. It was 1,000 small betrayals that led to a man who thought cheating was easier than trying. He kept reaching out. A few emails. A text here and there. Eventually, even a LinkedIn message, because he thought I blocked his number. I hadn't, yet. But I stopped replying altogether. I had bigger things to focus on. Melia's college applications. The garden I started redoing with Leah on weekends. My writing, something I hadn't touched in years but was finally picking up again. A women's support group in Palo Alto invited me to speak at their summer retreat. I said yes. Every day that passed, I felt more rooted in myself. Stronger. And yet, there was one thing I hadn't done. Something that needed to happen, not for Carson, but for myself. I needed to see her. Marielle. Not out of anger. Not to yell or demand answers. But because after everything, there was still a small piece of me that needed to look the storm in the face and know I could walk through it untouched. So one sunny afternoon in August, I drove to her office. The biotech firm where she worked wasn't far, just off the 101 in Redwood City. I'd done my homework. I knew her role, her reputation, how she carried herself online. On LinkedIn, she posted motivational quotes about energy alignment and women supporting women. The irony wasn't lost on me. I parked across the street and waited. She came out just after 5 p.m., tote bag slung over her shoulder, sunglasses on, laughing at something a coworker said. She looked exactly like I expected, early 30s, long honey blonde hair, those platform sneakers that scream, trying to stay young forever, and that smug self-satisfaction women like her wear when they think they've won. I didn't walk up to her then. I waited until she'd made it to her car, an over-polished white Tesla, naturally. And just as she pulled open the driver's side door, I approached. Calmly. No drama. Like I was about to ask for directions. Marielle? I said, just loud enough for her to hear. She froze, hand on the door. Slowly turned. Up close, she looked nervous. I'm sure she recognized me from the few family photos Carson still had online, ones he probably hadn't gotten around to deleting yet. I'm Elise, I said, offering a small, tight smile. Carson's wife. Her face went pale. That smug expression flickered, then vanished altogether. She didn't say anything. I'm not here to yell. I'm not here to throw anything at you. I just figured it was time we met. She looked around nervously. Okay. I took another step, still casual. I'm not even mad at you. You didn't owe me anything. Carson did. But you were part of it, whether you knew everything or not. And I just wanted to say thank you. Her eyes narrowed, confused. Thank you? I nodded. Yeah. Because without you, he might have dragged things on for another year. Maybe longer. The lies. The indifference. The disrespect. But you helped speed up the process. She blinked. Clearly didn't know where this was going. I found the papers, I continued. I heard what he said about me. And I let him dig his own grave. Quietly. Gracefully. And now? Well, let's just say he's lost a lot more than he expected. I pulled out a copy of the PI report, just a few pages, redacted, clean, and handed it to her. You might want to read up. This was during the time he told you I was separated and working on things privately. He was with you one weekend and with me at a family barbecue the next. Same charm, same lines. Same lies. She took it. Hands trembling a bit. You're not the first, I added gently, and you won't be the last if you let it slide. Then I smiled. Not a vengeful grin. A calm, knowing one. I hope you ask yourself what kind of man starts a new life by lying through the end of his old one. With that, I turned and walked back across the street, got in my car, and drove off. No shouting. No humiliation. Just facts. Delivered like truth bombs wrapped in silk. That was the last time I ever saw her. From that moment on, the dominoes really began to fall. Apparently, Marielle didn't take the conversation lightly. She ghosted him completely, no calls, no texts, no goodbye. Just disappeared. Packed up her desk. Told HR she was taking a leave of absence for personal reasons. A few coworkers said she'd found out about another woman, someone from years before. The man had layers. Carson tried to reach out again. Called from different numbers. Sent a letter through my attorney, asking for mediation and reconsideration. But the court date had been set. I showed up in a navy blue suit, hair pinned, posture perfect. I came with full documentation, bank statements, evidence of financial tampering, and the support of a stellar attorney who had no tolerance for passive-aggressive manipulators like Carson. He came in looking deflated. No ring. No tie. Just the quiet desperation of a man who realized too late that the exit door came with a price tag. The judge wasn't amused by his antics. You attempted to liquidate joint assets without consent, she said flatly, reviewing the documents. And submitted signed divorce papers while continuing to reside with and financially depend on your spouse. That doesn't reflect well. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I just watched as the scales balanced themselves. In the end, I got the house. I got the beach condo. I kept the majority of our investments, savings, and even the dogs, because Melia said they preferred me anyway. The judge even granted me compensation for the funds he tried to discreetly reroute. He walked out of that courtroom with a bruised ego and significantly less than he came in with. But the real win wasn't financial. It was peace. Braden and Melia stayed close to me. Melia chose a college nearby, and Braden called more often than he ever had before. Our bond, scarred as it was, held strong. We started a tradition, Sunday dinners, just the three of us, no matter how busy life got. One evening, Braden brought over a girl he'd been seeing. As we cleared plates and she helped dry dishes, she looked at me and said, "Your son talks about you all the time. He says you're the strongest person he knows." I smiled, quietly wiping down the counter. I didn't need fireworks. I didn't need an audience. The best revenge was reclaiming my life, without a single scream or broken dish. And the man who once said I was too weak to walk away? He now had front row seats to watch exactly how strong I became.